Welcome to Reparenting Radio. I'm Lisa Watson, a transformational coach, author, and cycle breaker, just like you. This podcast is a sacred space for truth-telling, remembrance, and radical healing. Each week, I share stories, spiritual teachings, and nervous system wisdom to help dismantle disempowering beliefs, break generational cycles, and reclaim our sovereignty. So together, we can build a new world rooted in love and freedom for the generations to come. If you're ready to remember who you are beneath the programming, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello. Today I am joined by guest John Harper, a Diamond Approach teacher, Enneagram guide, and a beautiful voice in the world of human development. His work bridges psychology and spirituality in a way that helps us understand not just who we are, but how we became that way. John's the author of The Enneagram World of the Child, which explores how our earliest experiences shape both our personality and our perceptions of reality. John describes parenting as a sacred invitation to meet the child within ourselves. So let's dive in and explore what it really means to reparent ourselves from the inside out. Welcome, John. How are you today?
I'm well, Lisa. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm so excited to have you here. And we were discussing just before we went live that I'm the only person on the planet that doesn't know what an Enneagram is. So I would love it if you would explain that to me.
Well, Enneagram is a 9-pointed figure. And that figure is used in a specific personality typing system that differentiates 9 distinct personality types, not only with character and traits, but with their worldview, the way that their attention works, the dynamics that are driving them. So the book is using that personality typing system to help people understand the influence that their personality has on the child's development. Because the child is growing up in an environment where it's being constantly impressed by the personality, the emotions, the energies of the parents. And quite often, well, most of the time, especially with most parents that aren't spending quite a bit of time with personal exploration, it's just happening unconsciously. We grow up in a soup of our parents' attitudes, beliefs, emotions, and energies. And it has a profound effect on how we develop our own sense of self, of who we are.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And the reparenting method is understanding that at its core. We can go back and tell ourselves different stories about ourselves, talk to ourselves in different ways, the way that we wished our parents had, to help us to break free of some of our personality traits that maybe we don't want anymore, or some of the habits or behaviors that we have. So what are some specific things that you write about in your book that talk about this? What are these personality traits that do end up shaping children? How can we use this information to help us be better parents?
Well, the title of the book is a little misleading, because the book has very little to do with the child's personality type. Okay? The book is about seeing the influence of the parent's personality on the child's development. And it's also a way for adults, parents, doesn't mean you have to be a parent, and you don't have to know anything about the Enneagram of personality types, because the book goes in to, there's a short explanation of the 9 types. Like, you might be a perfectionist, right? Or you might be a helper. There are different designations. So you could easily find kind of, well, that sounds more like me. So the book puts forth different scenarios where parents find themselves in. They can look at their own personality and start to explore the influence it's having on the parental environment. And so it's a way of opening up personal exploration for parents as well is seeing the effects that the interaction of the two personalities of the parent are having on the child.
So basically, it's a book that brings about more awareness.
Yeah, I would say that that's its primary function. It deals with what I call the dance of development. Okay? And the dance of development is about getting under the hood of the personality. It's not about trying to deal with it externally and rearrange different characteristics or traits of our personality. It's about getting underneath the hood and seeing not only what's driving that now, but what were the formative forces that were in our environment that are common to all personalities that help provide the interaction of forces that in adapting to that, the personality forms. So those, I boil that down to 6 primary forces or dynamics. 3 of them are the primary emotions of the ego or personality, which are fear, anger, and shame. And then another force is the superego or inner critic. Now, those are emotions and forces that we're trying to adapt to, and each personality type has a particular way of relating to those and carrying those forward into the world and reacting to them. The 2 forces that are operative in what you might call the soul of the child that are trying to deal with all that are the need to be seen and the need to belong. So those are 2 very deep forces driving the child's development to find a secure sense of self and a cohesive sense of self in the world. And then I talk about 2 what I call liberating forces, which you talk about awareness, and that's certainly something that's needed. I address that through acceptance and curiosity. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So those 8 dynamics are what the book is about, the interplay of those. And in that interplay between those forces and the parents' established personalities, that creates the holding environment that the child is adapting to, which in just an unbelievable influence on who the child becomes, who they take themselves to be.
Absolutely. In fact, during the first 7 years of life is when the programs, the beliefs, the habits, and the behaviors are mainly downloaded because we're in this hypnotic state. It's when the child is, their brain is developing and they're becoming basically a product of their environment, right? So you only know what you know. You only know what you're exposed to. You can't be something that hasn't been modeled for you yet. So it's really exciting, your book, because how I see it, like awareness is the first step. We have to know where our habits came from, what they are. We have to take full inventory on ourselves before we're able to see where we need to make those changes. You know, why are we behaving this way? Why is it when our child does this, does it make us so upset? Or what our expectations are. And when we start going within and looking at our own parents and how they responded to us, the behaviors that they modeled, the personalities that they have, we start to understand our own programming. And once we're able to understand our own programming, then we can start making choices. Do I want to keep this or do I want to let it go? Where before there's awareness, I feel like everything's just a soup in there. Like we can't differentiate between what we want and what we don't want. We think everything's just automatic. This is just who I am, you know. And then once we have this awareness and we realize, oh, I see now where this comes from, it gives us the ability to change.
I see it like that, but also the awareness does all the work. Like
Yes.
if I go in and I see and explore through curiosity, that's why curiosity is such a liberating force, and acceptance. And by acceptance, I don't mean yes or no. It has nothing to do with yes or no. Acceptance is just the openness of being able to be with what's showing up. This is here. I'm open to it. I can experience it. I can allow myself to explore it, feel the impact of it, and I want to be curious about that. So the curiosity takes the awareness deeper into, say, a particular pattern that you would like to change, but instead of leaving you at a place where you then take action from the constructed self or the ego or personality, the awareness takes you deep enough to where you go, well, that's not me. That's something I took on. Right.
Right. That was a program. That was a belief. That was my parents talking,
Right.
not me.
So there's more of a dissolution that happens instead of me having to reject it or try to manipulate it. It's the child doesn't know enough to understand manipulation, but fundamentally it's similar to adaptation. They're trying to adapt. And everybody seems to have that experience of feeling like they had to pretzelize themselves to survive and exist in the world by adapting to their environment, by the demands of the parenting environment. Because as a child, as you know, everything's survival. Mom and dad don't love me, there's not going to be food on the table.
And then, right, and then we don't feel safe. And what I've distilled it down to, and how I describe that, is that through shame, we're disconnected from our authenticity. Through our parents shaming us and disconnecting from us, we're bad, we get a timeout, or we're sent to our room, or we're not allowed to play with the family anymore. We're outcasts for the moment or whatever because of our behavior. The only thing the child's hearing is, I'm not good enough. I'm not safe to be my authentic self. I'm not safe to just express myself the way I was expressing it, because now I don't feel that connection. Without that connection, I may not survive. A child knows intrinsically through their DNA that they need an adult in their life in order to survive. So that can be very scary. Describe to me how, from your point of view and the research you've done, how does that impact the personality or the ego of the child?
Well, right there, you've brought everything about the book into connection. The child needs to belong. It needs that sense of belonging for survival. Without it, it feels threatened. There's no certainty that tomorrow's going to happen or the next moment's going to happen. And also to be seen. Okay? I mean, those are primary in human development. Those two needs, not only spiritually, but psychologically and emotionally. Those are huge things. Okay? Now, when you look at the three primary emotions, you brought up shame, but let's talk about fear and anger to begin with, because those are biological in nature. Okay? They're connected to the biology of fight or flight. Mm-hmm. Okay? There's fear or aggression, depending on which one you're going to react with to survive. So those are very deep forces at a biological level, and that's getting imprinted on our psychology, and we're trying to deal with it that way. And that's why they're primary. Shame is a little different, because to understand shame, I think you need to understand two components of a child. Well, one is fundamental to all egos, in that as ego structure starts forming, it kind of forms a separating barrier around us, and it separates us from reality, from the ground of reality. So within ego structure, there's this sense of deficiency at its core, this sense of disconnection or lack. Okay? And a child is much more in touch with that. They haven't developed the type of defenses and thickening of skin and all of that to not feel that emptiness that exists at the heart of all egos. Now, when you couple that up with a child's need to be seen, you can see pretty quickly why children always hold themselves accountable. Like it must be my fault. Mom and dad are fighting. Okay? A child blames himself. I'm the problem, right? And that is because they've started to develop this capacity for self-reflection. Okay? So they're not only responding to their need to be seen by the parents, but now they're seeing themselves through the parents' eyes.
And from what I understand, under the age of 8, they still don't really understand that they are separate. So there really is no other option for them but to believe that it is their fault. And that's
Right.
why things like divorce can create so much trauma for children, especially under the age of 8. When their parents separate, there's just this belief that it was because of them, that they're
Right. And
somehow to blame.
that's because they're more sensitive to this existential emptiness within ego itself. You know, there's this in touchness with there's something not quite right about me, because they're closer to that disconnection from their essence, from their essential self, from their soul. So they're much more in touch with that than the parents. And so when something's wrong and they're carrying around that sensitivity of something's not quite right with me, okay, it all comes back to them. Like everything that's wrong with the world is my fault.
Right. And you're absolutely right as far as the ego is about separateness. The ego was, as I see it, developed because we believe that we separated from God. Like that cord was cut. We were no longer connected to source energy. We were no longer believed that we were God. We forgot who we were. And so there's this belief that we are separate. And that in itself, like you said, that's pretty frightening.
It is, and it starts at a neurological level. And one needs to keep in mind that these words and concepts are not what the child is experiencing. The child, under the age of 8, especially if you move back to 5 or prior to that, is not living in a conceptual world. Everything is immediate. They live in a world of emotions and energy and physical experientialness.
Now moment.
Right. They are not relating to their experience through a lens of concepts.
Right.
So I use a little exercise to point out to people, to give them a taste of how it all begins. Okay? So what I'll do is I'll put on some nice soothing music and do a guided meditation with people. And, I'll talk about Bambi and the woods and a nice glen and everything. So there's just a soft breeze and butterflies. And, I'm soothing people into this place, which you can equate with the state of an infant when everything is just okay and bliss. Right? There's just nothing happening. Everything is total relaxation. And then I'll throw in a blaring car horn. Okay, right in the middle of this.
How about Bambi's mother gets shot?
Well, that's an image. I'm doing something that is more immediate to shock the nervous system, right? And I ask people, what was that like? And everybody registers the shock.
Right.
Okay. Now, if you think of an infant who experiences things like that all the time because they are just pure sensitivity, right? They don't know about the world yet. They don't know. They're just reacting. So say a child is born and they're like 5 blocks from a fire station. So the siren goes off several times a day. So it's and it's And what happens at a neurological level, okay, is the mind starts anticipating the siren. Okay? And it recognizes the response within the nervous system and the muscles about how to cope with that. And it starts laying down this patterning of holding a certain tension in the body to be prepared for when this happens. Okay? That's how it begins. That's how the roots of all this conditioning and belief and personality structures start happening. It's in the muscles. It's in the nervous system. It's pre-verbal.
I am so excited. Like, that is gold right there. Honestly, if people could truly understand that, because it's like what I've discovered at the core of every issue is sitting our nervous system. Basically, what you're saying is the nervous system is conditioned to react or respond to a certain thing. And what I have found happens is we carry this over into our adult life. And because we actually do create the reality we live in, because it's been proven that through quantum physics we do live in a holographic reality, and everything's
Oh, now you're getting my attention.
Well, let's go there. Yeah, for sure. Everything's energy and vibration, and there actually is nothing outside of you, that you're projecting everything. That you have to understand exactly what you just said. It's understanding that your nervous system has been conditioned, and it wants to go back to homeostasis all the time. So that's where I call it the beaten wife syndrome sort of thing. Like, if you're raised in an environment where there's constant trauma in your nervous system, or even near the firehouse, right? Or maybe that sound is your alcoholic father or mother or aunt or whatever in the house causing disruption, or the narcissism that's going on in the relationship that you're raised around. You're wired for that. So you're literally projecting out and creating a reality for yourself that mirrors that. I mean, I've seen it in my own life. I was in a narcissistic relationship for over 28 years. And in the last 10 years has been where I've created this reparenting method and all, because of the work that I've had to do on myself, because of the discoveries that I've made about my own upbringing, my own nervous system, and seeing how it has played out. I'm still seeing it today, and I've been doing this work 24/7 for like 10 years, but seeing how we create it. We create the drama. We create the disruption. We filter it. We put a lens over our reality, basically, so that it will match up with what we're already wired for. We're creating that same energetic signature into our experiences. Like, it is so exciting to me that we live in a holographic reality, because I see it so clearly now.
You bring up two things. One is we all have an energetic comfort zone. Right? If we get out of that comfort zone, if it gets too unenergetic, if it's too dull, we got to crank that up, because we can't stand being out of the zone. If it goes over the top, we got to come. And one way that I have students look at that is I say, go out and drive for a week. Okay, but go like 5 to 10 miles an hour underneath the speed limit every time you're in the car. Just slow down. Go. Pretty soon you're climbing out of your skin. You can't stand. And then do the opposite. Go 10 miles over the speed limit. Most people drive over the speed limit anyway. So go 10 miles over that, where you're pushing like getting a ticket or whatever. You can't handle it. You got to get back in your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Homeostasis for the nervous system.
Yeah.
And it's the same with our relationships. People say that they want a better relationship. Like, my husband's this, or my mother's that, or my boss is this or that. And understanding that it has nothing to do with them, truly. Like, that I just did a video about this the other day, about like, I was in a narcissistic relationship for 28 years. I own that. I needed him to be exactly as he was, because that's what I had been wired for my entire childhood. And it wasn't until I had the self-awareness, until I realized that I'm choosing this and I don't want this anymore. I have to be able to get uncomfortable. I have a sign right here above my desk that says, if you are not uncomfortable, then you are not evolving.
That's like Adyashanti that says, if meditation isn't scaring the hell out of you, you're not doing it right.
Exactly.
But
Because
you
it's
point to
feeling.
something that is absolutely dead on, and you can look at it through Freud's concept with two different levels, and that is, Freud saying that everybody wants to marry their mother. Okay? And it's not the mother, but it is one of kind of two options for staying connected to mother's energy, the environmental energy. Okay. One has to do with the first 6 months of life, when the infant is in this kind of merged state with mother, this symbiotic state, and there's no differentiation between the mother and the infant. And this is a patterning deep within the neurology and biology and soul of the child that drives all orientation around relationship, trying to find the perfect relationship, trying to find the soulmate or whatever. All of that is coming out of this early symbiotic state with mother, because that was a perfect state of unity for the organism. And that is now influencing our psychology in a way that it's looking to recreate that spiritual, biological state that existed in the first 6 months of life. The other one is further out on the onion, which has to do with most people can't tolerate joy and bliss. Okay? They're more wired toward what is known as negative merging. There's friction in the environment. This is what you see in so much of what's going on these days, where people get together and all they do is bitch about things. Mm-hmm. Let's have a bitch fest, because that feels like real relating to them. That's the only way they know to really relate. And that's tied into the neurology of our brains, organic skew towards the negative for survival. Like it just gets all wrapped up in that. So again, it is like to really understand that, to really see it and start getting at it, like your 28 years of relationship, and then digging into it. You got to get under it all. You got to get underneath all your ideas about it. You got to get back in touch with the isness of what it was.
Exactly. Yeah. And we think we want to be happy, but the reality is we're not wired for that. We're not conditioned for that. The way I see it is really just, it's all about conditioning. The reason that we're sitting around bitching to each other is because we have been programmed and conditioned to talk that way. One, it may be the behaviors of the caregivers around us as we were growing up. It could be television. It's modeled. I've never really been a TV watcher my entire life. Even as a kid, I've never really liked it. It's always made me feel uncomfortable. And I think it's because it's so ego-based. Most movies and even ads that we hear, there's so much defensiveness, and there's shame, and there's arguing, and there's not taking accountability, and there's talking about the past all the time. Like when we were born, in those first 8 years, as these avatars, which I describe as your brain is the operating system, and in the first 8 years, you're downloading that operating system and you're understanding how things work. So if that's the behaviors that this society is modeling for us, talking about the past, bitching and moaning, thinking that we're separate from everything, then that is what the avatar is going to believe.
Yeah.
There's no way around it.
I agree with that. I would draw some more attention to development. We aren't making choices. We aren't choosing to be like this. We are not doing the programming. We are being conditioned. Our brain is being programmed from the outside. Okay? And we are responding to that through a process of adaptation to survive as this development takes place. So the sense of self, and this is an interesting thing, this sense of self that we take ourselves to be, this familiar sense of self, isn't real. It's a mental construct, and it takes a lot to actually understand that. It takes a lot of exploration to start discriminating. That's just the way the mind is putting all of these different types of memory that are in me together and forming this sense of self as a 2-year-old.
Right.
Stage development. They walk around, they babble, they eat, they do all these things. They function in the world without that sense of self. The sense of self that we're so dependent upon, that we're taking ourselves to be, that we are kind of standing our ground around and defending and projecting into the world, that isn't a real thing. Right? But it has the sense of being real because what we are is imbuing it with the sense of existence because it's identified with it. What we are is existence. Right? And as we've been conditioned and we start accepting the fact that, oh, I'm little Johnny and I'm this and I'm that, because every day we're being bombarded with this image and pressure to be this, we start taking ourselves to be that. But that has no existence on its own. It's a construct within the mind.
Yeah, we're not filtering any of those programs. Like you said, the child is absolutely not choosing. We did not choose the programs, although I do believe we chose them before we got into these bodies. Like we chose what those experiences were going to be. But we're literally in a hypnotic state under the age of 8. You're walking around in this theta brainwave state. You're not saying, oh, I want to keep that. I don't want that. No, I think you're not doing any of that. It's just acceptance. You're accepting if your parents tell you you're stupid or you're smart or you're whatever they tell you over and over and over again. Okay, I am. That's what I am. You told that to me. So, okay. And then I become that. And then I create the reality based on that belief. The reality being based on the beliefs that we hold. So you have a practice that you work with clients, correct? Are you still actively doing that? And what methods do you use that may be similar to what I do as the reparenting method? Like, what does that mean to you to reparent yourself from the inside out? And how do you work with your clients in order to unwind some of these conditioning beliefs about themselves that are no longer serving?
Well, I'm a teacher in the diamond approach, which is a spiritual path that also avails itself of a lot of psychological knowledge and spiritual knowledge from all kinds of different orientations. But the primary methodology is open and open-ended inquiry. It's about what's going on right now. So it is working with people to get them out of their heads, back into their bodies, to be able to connect with their bodies and get them out of their heads into their immediate experience. You know, it's more of a process of regression at the beginning where you're trying to take them back to what they were before all the conditioning happened. Right? And it starts out as kind of a conceptual or mental process of inquiry, but you're working with people to get them more into the immediacy of the phenomenology and to start discriminating that what they are is absolutely phenomenological in nature and not conceptual. So it's at that level, you see, where awareness really becomes obvious that it's what does the work, because in the phenomenology of what I am, in the phenomenology of existence, like I am existence, to know that, right? To absolutely experience what I am is existence. Okay. then when I look at any of that psychological content, any ideas I have about myself, it's easy to see that, oh, that's a mental construct of something. And it makes sense. It may even be useful, but it's not what I am in my essence. Okay? But if I continue to take myself to be that, to be this personality type, okay, then when I think I'm making choices, what I have is the same system that created this misidentification is actually defending itself and keeping its structure. It's rearranging the furniture in the house. It's putting a new coat of paint on things. But basically, the house is still the house, right? And that's not real. You know, the living is in the organism that's in the house. Right?
It's so fascinating, John, because we believe basically the same exact thing.
How could it not be?
Yeah, because the truth is the truth, right? But describe it in such different ways, and it's just so beautiful because as you're talking about this and you were saying like we are just existence, and I describe that as we're God. We're simply energy and form, and in the now moment we are nothing but that energy. And as you were saying, just in a different way, it's like it's only the belief about something that creates the construct of it. Like I can really see how beliefs create reality. Beliefs in the construction of beliefs, the energy signature of the belief is what's creating the reality. As you said, it's your essence. We're nothing. Nothing actually has any meaning. There is no meaning in anything. We give everything all the meaning that it has for us. And it's like getting back to that 0 point, back to that you are consciousness. You are God in form. You are the 0 point. And you can get yourself back to that 0 point of nothing. And like you said, it's like a blank slate. We're living on this white canvas board that we're painting. We're painting the story. We're putting the meaning on it. And we have the choice to put any meaning we want on it. It's only our conditioning and our belief system that is automatically, subconsciously layering and throwing the paint on the canvas, and then we're looking at the canvas and we're letting it describe to us like what's happening as if it is separate from us or happening to us, when in reality you painted it, you created it simply through your perception and your beliefs and the meaning that you chose to give it. That is really very exciting, freeing concept that is why I do what I do, and I call it the reparenting method, because it gives you all of your power back.
I would, I can agree with that. I think the analogy of a blank canvas and painting of it is good. We're looking through a lens that has been formed and distorted. So it is not that I'm just looking at the exterior world and I'm seeing something there. I'm actually looking through this lens and seeing whatever is there. And it really boils down a lot to the question of, is there a choice? Who chooses? Right? Where's that coming from? Because the ego, this constructed self, has no agency. Because it doesn't exist. Okay. Now you could say, looking at the external world and what happens, okay, it seems like choices are being made. But if the ego, this personality, this identity that I'm taking myself to be, if that's a construct and has no ontological existence of its own, okay, where's that choice coming from? Is it choice? What is actually going on there? And that could lead us really down the rabbit hole of quantum physics and wave particle collapse and all of that. Mm-hmm. But again, it appears to be happening that way. And part of the process of getting under the hood and allowing ourselves to go back into the experience of what it is that we are as opposed to who we think we are, okay, involves the process of believing, oh, I'm making this choice and I'm making this choice. But at some time, those fundamentals also have to be challenged. What's really going on there?
Yes. And what you said earlier too, awareness does the work.
It does. And I'll tell you one thing, there's a hell of a lot less wear and tear on the system when that finally lands and one starts putting all of their attention into the immediacy of their experience.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of the human experience and human development. Okay? When you go back to the basic motivations, okay, of landing in what it is that will bring real satisfaction, not temporary, real contentment, not situational, true joy, not based on circumstances or having this. None of that comes from this constructed self and this external world. It comes from being in touch with what we are, landing on that ground again. Right? And then it opens up a lot of possibilities in life because I'm no longer running around trying to put together happiness. Okay? I'm no longer trying to create this sense of self that has a sense of satisfaction or joy. That's what got me into the predicament, because I was young and I left that part of myself to go create that part of myself, okay? Which through the construct is a distortion, is a trying to recreate the real, which it can't do. The only solution is really following the thread of what's real. I want to find out. And letting awareness evaporate what's not real.
exactly. Yeah, I love it. Awareness is the key, people. Always, it's the key. It's like stepping back and being almost like in this. I love to do what's basically a walking meditation, like all the time. Like I'm just staying present. I'm tapping in to the thoughts that are coming through my head, how my body is feeling, and doing my best to just like always stay right here in the present moment and knowing that whatever it is that is happening out there, or I think that is happening out there, it's my creation. I'm the one that gets to decide how I interpret it. And when we take back our power and we remember that I get to decide how I interpret this outer reality of mine, that's where I feel like there's peace. That's where I can find peace because I can make the choice when I spill honey all over everything and I need to be somewhere in 5 minutes that I can stop and I can say, okay, I'm going to be present with this honey right now in this floor and clean it up. And I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be because this is happening for me somehow. And, who knows? Maybe it kept me from a car accident or it's just divine standard time now.
Well, the key point that you mentioned, which is the key point of real parenting and reconnecting with what we are, is presence. It's much more important to be present with a child than to try to have some strategy or agenda. To be present and not know that child that's been in your life for 2 years is the best thing that that child can experience. To have wonderment and the openness for the child to show up as they are and to actually feel and experience you phenomenologically as being there, perceiving them. That is something that happens only intermittently, arbitrarily, hit and miss in a parenting situation. So the book is about using that dance of development to also shift one's priority from a Dr. Spock book on how to parent properly, to working with people to develop the capacity to recognize presence and to practice it and bring it more and more into the parenting environment.
To reparent yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We have to reparent ourselves before we're able to really parent our children the way that we'd like. We have to recognize how we were parented, what our programs are, what our behaviors are. We have to know ourselves inside and out. We just have to take inventory of this avatar, so to speak, and we have to, I believe, not have any judgment over what those characteristics and behaviors are. It's just simply, okay, I see them, I recognize them. Do I want to continue with these, or do I want to make a different choice? And that's uncomfortable. It's not as easy as just like, oh, I don't want to yell anymore, so I'm just going to stop yelling. You know, my father always yelled at me, so I'm a parent that yells, but oh, I don't like that anymore. I'm just not going to do it. You understanding, like we talked about earlier, that your nervous system's wired for that. It's conditioned. It's a subconscious, reaction, and that it takes practice. It takes present moment awareness that it's happening in order to stop and make a different choice.
Well, one thing that can be helpful here is to understand the concept of ego syntonic and ego dystonic, because it's through exploration and awareness that many choices don't happen as choices anymore. It's you come to a point, and I'll bet you have plenty of these experiences, where you recognize that's just not me anymore. Mm-hmm. There's not a choice. It's like, that's not me. And so behavior and identity start shifting, because what was once taken to be me, which was ego syntonic, that supports this external sense of self, is no longer syntonic. It's dystonic. It's just not me. And that can be anything from like having the need of a relationship with a narcissist, okay, to quitting smoking. It's like, you just stop because it's no longer you.
Right. That happened to me. I was just like, I am not this person anymore. I'm not the person who can't use her voice anymore. I'm not the person that's pretending anymore. Like, I just can't do it anymore. Yeah. It's not
so it's possible. Not so much a choice. It's like, it can be interpreted as that, but it's really like, that's not of me anymore. I can't do it.
And this is actually a whole topic for another podcast, but because of what is happening on the planet right now with frequency and vibration and ascension, we are just energetic beings, again, projecting this holographic reality. And as the frequencies and the vibrations of this planet continue to rise, it cannot hold the frequency of some of those lower level programming, the shame programming, the egocentric programming. It's like we're getting to the point where we just can't do it anymore. We can't. The frequency is not able to be held within this dimension anymore for us to even act that way and to tap in to those lower level frequencies. We're going to wrap it up, and I want you to tell me how people can find you and a little bit about where we can find your book and what it is that you offer.
I have a website, harpnosis.shop, HARPGNOSIS.shop, where the books are. There's a new book up there called Nurturing Essence, a compass for essential parenting. And that goes much more into what's going on in stage development between birth and 5 years of age, looking at it through not only a psychological lens, but also through the role that essence plays and the loss of essence in development. You can find me by just searching on Diamond Approach Sacramento. I have a website that is much more about the Diamond Approach, but it's an easy thing to search on.
I will include all the links. No one will have to search for anything. We'll go ahead and put the links here in the show notes for everyone to follow. I found you on LinkedIn, and I'm super excited about that. So many of us are just awakening to these truths about who we truly are, what it means to be a really effective parent in bringing children into this new world that isn't based in fear and is based more in love. And I'm super excited that you joined me here today, and thank you so much.
I appreciate it, and part of that journey that you've spoken of is allowing the child in us to reemerge into the world. Right?
To play. I was saying it to myself the other night on my walk. I said, Lisa, remember, just keep looking at the world with the wonderment of a child. Like when you wake up, it's like, ooh, like what amazing thing's going to happen today? And when we're staying in the present moment, it's just like, let's watch it unfold. Let's see what it brings us. Like, how good can it get without judgment? Just enjoy your life and see it through the eyes of a child.
One of the things that arises quite often in the morning for me when I go out and it's overcast and raining, but this comes up, has there ever been a more glorious day?
I love it. And where our attention goes, energy flows, and we get more of the same. So keep creating a beautiful day for yourself.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for joining this episode of Reparenting Radio. If it sparks something in you, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow cycle breaker. If you want to go deeper, visit my website at reparent-yourself.com for healing tools and programs. And be sure to explore my soul-nourishing children's books at awakentheone.org. Until next time, stay sovereign, speak your truth, and keep reparenting your way home to yourself.